Right. Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for this session. My name is Stephanie Baskerville. I'm the content writer here at ProServe IT, and I'm going to be your in-session co-organizer. I'd like to welcome you all to this session, which is entitled Digital Marketing 101 for Nonprofits. I'd like to take a quick moment here to introduce the speaker for today's session. So on the line with me is Jaffer Hassan, Digital Experience Manager at Imagine Canada. Jaffer is the Digital Experience Manager at Imagine Canada, a charity supporting the work and operating environment of the social good sector. Jaffer has brought a wealth of marketing knowledge and experience from the private sector, playing a pivotal role in Groupon's record-shattering growth, and has since worked on major digital design projects and cultural transformations through technology at nonprofits in the UK, the US, and Canada. So welcome, Jaffer, and it's a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Perfect.
Hi everyone, my name's Jaffer Hassan, and today I'm going to tell you why your charity or nonprofit can't afford to not embrace digital. I'm the Digital Experience Manager at Imagine Canada, and have helped us undergo our own major digital transformation, which included a brand new website and the hiring of multiple staff with digital first expertise. It wasn't always easy doing that, and we still have lots more to do before we can truly say that we have fully embraced digital. But today I'm going to tell you a bit about my journey, give you some helpful tactics and ideas to take with you back to your boss, back to your organization, so that you can make them better equipped for the digital era. So I've been at Imagine Canada for 2.5 years, and I've worked with nonprofits and charities for the past 5 years or so. I started my career in the private sector. I actually wanted to be a journalist, but couldn't find any work after I graduated in 2009. The recession had kicked in, and many newsrooms had failed to embrace digital quickly enough. Even in journalism school, we were still learning how to edit and design newspapers by hand with pencil and paper. The whole industry was definitely not equipped for digital. My first real job out of university was at Groupon. At the time, it was a company of around 30 people. I was the third person to join the editorial department. Within a year, my department grew to over 100 people, and the company had hired over 1,000 staff. We became the fastest growing company in the world and had offers from Google and Yahoo, and we were worth billions of dollars. After 3 years at Groupon, which felt like a lifetime because of how quick everything moves in the digital world, I went on to work for other tech startups, including a digital agency where I helped overhaul the UK's largest police force's website and helped design their digital strategy. We designed their strategy to help them with their goals, which was essentially to continue to be a police force in the face of massive government cuts. I'm sure many organizations here have tight budgets, and I'll explain how digital strategies and effective marketing tools can help you do more with less. Shortly before moving to Canada, I worked on Hillary Clinton's election campaign in Ohio, and we all know how that turned out. But I have some insights from that which will hopefully help you figure out how to transform your organization into one that fully embraces digital and uses it to effectively operate. So let me begin by saying thank you for being here. Digital matters, and that's why you're here. You probably don't need much convincing, you probably know all of this, but we all work with people internal or external who aren't convinced, who are fearful of digital and what it looks like, or simply don't understand it. And sure, if you have real problems at your organization, challenges that you are facing, there isn't always going to be a digital solution. Human connection is still vitally important. However, digital is non-negotiable. We know that donations and the old major donors are dying out, but most of your new donors are interacting with the world on a daily basis using digital technology. Mobile phone journeys on most nonprofit and charity websites is abysmal. Donate buttons are sometimes impossible to find. When eventually found, the messaging on these sites can be convoluted, written in language that doesn't speak to its primary audience, but maybe only to a small subsection of avid supporters. Embracing digital means your organization is more equitable, more accessible, and more in tune with the communities you serve. Digital philosophies help charities and nonprofits respond quickly to an ever-changing world, to their audience's ever-changing needs. They help charities and nonprofits run more efficiently and more effectively. They help build trust and credibility in what we do. But you all know that, and that takes me to my next point. So what does Imagine Canada do? As I said before, I've been working with Imagine Canada implementing our own digital transformation, and it hasn't been easy, nor are we fully embracing it. For those that don't know who we are, Imagine Canada is a charity representing nonprofits in Canada, helping to improve their operating environment through a range of products, services, and research. Grant Connect, a fundraising database, research database, is our main social enterprise. We provide a discounted rate compared to the private sector, and fundraisers use it to look up grants and donors. We also provide recognition and encouragement to caring companies. These are companies investing at least 1% of their non-profits, of their profits back into charities and non-profits in their communities. And we provide recognition to charities with accreditation within our accreditation program, which is based on organizational excellence. And Imagine Canada also provides research and public policy to help charities get the tools they need to fulfill their mission more effectively, whether it's through things like our Hill Day or lobbying on behalf of the sector. So I'm going to focus on 3 areas today, using a little bit of my background and my journey to getting to work in the charitable sector. So 3 areas are digital content, user stories, and agile work environments. So I'm going to tie them in with my experiences where I worked at Groupon, with the Metropolitan Police, and on Hillary Clinton's campaign. And hopefully, while probably everyone here is avid supporters of digital and want to get their organization on the right track with digital marketing and digital strategy, hopefully with these insights taken from a range of experiences I think were quite unique and quite interesting at the time, hopefully you'll be able to put them to good use at your charity or non-profit. So what's your strategy? Most organizations usually have an idea of what their mission is and how they plan to go about it, but do you know your audience? And I want you to think about who you are excluding from your strategy right now. Who might you need to speak to, and how are you going to get them interested in what you do? And how are you going to keep them engaged with your work? And the answer to that is make your content do the work. Your digital content, be it blog posts, instructional text, images, videos, emails, they can all do that work for you and execute your strategy for you. It's really important that your content is aligned with your business goals, but that above all else, it provides value to your audience. If you're creating content just to make a few extra sales, then I'd suggest use that energy on your advertising instead. Digital content is a form of marketing for sure, but it needs to provide value to your audience. And I'll show you what value it adds back to your business goals. It improves trust and credibility. Hearing compelling stories from an organization can be a powerful way to show authenticity, credibility, and trust. And these are all very important for the charitable and nonprofit sector. It can help you grow your audience and attract new customers. Remember, you're not creating content to please 1 or 2 avid readers. Who is your content excluding? Think about ways you can reach out to people who are in need of your service, who ought to know about what you do. You're doing them a disservice if you don't try to reach out to them. So digital can help make charities more equitable and accessible to all of the communities they serve. These are all win-wins regardless of how you feel about digital. It can increase awareness of your mission, your products, your brand. And as a side effect, a good content strategy can help you recruit better talent. For example, before my interview with Imagine Canada, I obviously went to their website to do my research, and I read it 1,000 times for my research, and I still had no idea what they did. And I would say that those things have definitely changed since then, but when your message is clear, your staff and the people looking to join your company will be on the same page as you. So how important is content? So let me tell you about my time at Groupon. After 2 weeks of working at Groupon, I genuinely thought it was a scam. I didn't understand how we were making money. I didn't think it was real money. I couldn't believe that millions of people across the country would open our newsletters every day. Emails that all of us in this room would all probably call spam. It turned out it was all real. My team of editors were all of similar backgrounds to me, having just came out of university looking for a job as journalism. We tried to become journalists, but couldn't get a job in the dying newspaper industry. So to make the monotony of writing 10 spa deals per day more interesting, we decided to pepper the content with jokes. Things that we all found funny, but we thought wouldn't hurt anyone. It eventually became a content strategy with purpose and a grand vision, but it honestly started out as coworkers having a bit of fun and letting their personalities shine through in the work. And our bosses weren't really paying attention, thankfully. And just a reminder to all of you in the nonprofit world, and this is so important, your people, your culture is key to what you do. When it comes to embracing digital, your brand identity and grand strategies, they aren't defined solely by the CEO or the board, but by the staff carrying out the work day to day. And by the time our bosses started to notice what the hell we were doing, the rest of the world started to notice the fruits of our content strategy. And it led to customers showing more loyalty for our brand rather than the hundreds of competitors that existed at the time. Remember, the Groupon model isn't unique. Everyone is offering discounts somewhere. But the reason this became a billion-dollar business was because of its good content strategy. A good content strategy is equitable. It promotes your brand without patronizing or alienating your audience. It includes people who might not otherwise have known about you or what you do. But eventually, much thought was put into the content strategy and we turned it into something a lot more thought out that became what it is and became the company that, that made our company worth billions of dollars. And there were, and what I'd like you to think about now is, if you have a content strategy, just have a think about why it is the way that it is. Was there a reason behind the things that you do? Is that reason still relevant today? And there were two main philosophies that stood out that I think would be relevant to you behind Groupon's content strategy. Humor created some brand loyalty. A daily joke at the start of each deal gave a reason for customers to visit our website, even if they didn't want to buy anything. People can't buy from you or donate to you every day, but they can still remain engaged. The humor was also a key reason behind why we grew our customer base at such an incredible rate. People would share their newsletters with friends, not just to show off a great deal, but a funny joke they just read. Humor also represented a part of our brand persona, a way that people could identify us. Deals can be fun for everyone. There's no shame in looking for a cheap deal, and we didn't want to exclude anyone or make people feel like they were being told that they were cheap. And that's why we had the philosophy to show, don't tell. We banned meaningless adjectives like delicious or amazing. We wanted people to imagine a richer experience. This benefited the business in multiple ways. It showed our clients, the small businesses offering discounts, that we were focusing on the benefits of their business rather than the cheapness of the deal. This meant we weren't pulling in customers. This meant we were pulling in customers who didn't really need $20 off a spa deal, but they just wanted to try something new. And that benefited the businesses because they didn't want people who would never come back again. And we were building up a customer base, but we didn't want them to feel like they were being sold to constantly, because it is very annoying to obviously receive emails every day asking you to buy something, as I'm sure many of you experience when you have to send out calls for donations every day. We wanted customers to feel like there was something that was worth being subscribed to our emails for, worth being engaged with us for. Also, content needs to be a big part of your business strategy. They're not separate. How you communicate, how you tell people what it is you do is your business. But here's something to know, something important to know about your users. They don't care about your website. Most of them don't even care about most of the things that you do. It's a common problem with digital. It's so easy to share a thought and make it tangible by publishing it online. And it's important to note that digital marketing, digital transformation relies on providing experience that serves users, not just your board or your boss. You can send them an email if you need to let them know something. You don't need to publish it on your website. But your users have needs, and it's up to you to figure out what they are and service those needs with your digital content. So what do your users want? Not many people have your website bookmarked, believe it or not. We're all competing with millions of dog videos, Netflix, the news, Wikipedia. There's so much out there on the internet. And it's bizarre to think that anyone would think of your nonprofit website in the same light, unfortunately. That's the truth. But part of a good digital strategy is anticipating the needs of your users. And so it's about asking questions like, what do you have that they might need from you? I ask these questions when I'm coming up with marketing tactics for our flagship social enterprise, Grant Connect. We're aiming the product at people doing fundraising research, but most fundraisers have never heard of us. Well, they certainly wouldn't type into Google the words Grant Connect because they don't even know it exists. There are also tons of fundraisers out there who don't even know that there is a platform where you can search through donors and foundations. So what would they search for? Probably for dog videos, just like the rest of us. However, there are things that those people might search for related to their work, like, say, things like top fundraising tips, things that help them do something a little bit better in their work. Maybe they search for the name of a grant-making foundation. In those search results is where I want to be if I want to market Grant Connect properly. So I want you to think about how best to anticipate your audience's needs. And that was the main thinking behind the redesign of the Met Police's digital strategy. So what happens when you lose funding, but you're still expected to achieve the same output, if not maybe more? As I'm sure many of you here will have experienced before. Fortunately for the Met Police, there were several digital opportunities available. In other words, read that as their website was atrocious. Their website used to have information about every unit in the police force, including the dog unit, which was just about how long they train the dogs for and which police forces use them and why. It had information about the units trained in firearms. It had the make and model of the guns they use, the units that ride horses. Why? I honestly don't know. And I've been a Londoner my whole life up until 3 years ago when I moved to Canada. And I never thought I would need the police to learn about what level of training a police officer needs to ride a horse and whatnot. And I'm not sure that anyone does. And I'm sure just like all of you here, maybe your only contact with the police has been in an event of an emergency. And hopefully that's the only time you ever want to be in touch with them. So they definitely needed a brand new strategy. And that's where I came in. And there were two main thoughts here. We wanted to make the website easy to use for everyone. Not everyone is digitally savvy, and I think that goes without saying. Whatever you're doing, don't assume everyone is good at the internet when they come to your website. So one of the things that we noticed is that a lot of people in London had this misperception that if your neighbors are making too much noise next door, you could contact the police. In London, you're supposed to actually call your local council. So we put up a triage box on the homepage, putting the most important questions first, or what people might ask. We anticipated users' needs. We figured in some cases people might want to report a crime. Maybe that happened a while ago, not exactly today. We figured people might want to use the website to complain about their noisy neighbors. But we created the reporting form to educate users too. So it would ask you a question and it would take you through each step. And obviously if the crime was happening now, we'd tell you, no, get off this website and call us up. But if you decide you want to complain about your neighbor online, the website tells you to have a polite conversation with your neighbor, and then if need be, contact your local council with a link. The aim was to gradually educate the public and lower the number of emergency service calls and kind of reduce the strain on the police service. And the second thought was, how do we reduce or prevent crime with a digital strategy? If you were engaging in criminal activity, you would probably stay away from the police. So it's kind of strange that the Met Police have dozens of web pages dedicated to encouraging criminals to not commit crime. Not exactly the #1 search for criminals. However, knife crime is a big issue in London, and the Met Police's Live Knife Free program encourages those in gangs, those with knives, to educate themselves on the consequences of carrying a knife and to give up their knives. The plan was to anticipate what our audience was looking for. Like I said, if you were thinking of buying a knife and joining a gang in London, you probably wouldn't search, how do I live knife free? So instead, we wanted to look at it from the perspective of someone who might want to buy a knife. Ideally, you might want to look for a knife that's cooler than the ones your friends have, or one that's, you've seen that looks really big, whatever. I don't know what people want for knives, but the Met Police does have data on the hundreds of knives used in attacks in London over many years. They know the make of the knife, the damage it can do, how much it retails, and how many years you get in prison for carrying one. Amazon sells these knives, and if you search for them, Amazon is first in the search results. So I designed a strategy whereby we would get to the users before Amazon did. They would write feature-length content dedicated to each of the top 10 knives. They could even do a listicle on the top 10 knives. The article would then have a clear message at the top warning them of the dangers of getting involved in knife crime and a link to their resources on how to live knife-free. And I'd love for you to use an example like this when considering how best to maximize the effectiveness of some of your programs. Just because you have a website for your top mission-related program doesn't mean it carries out its mission. Why would anyone go to that website to read about what your charity does? And who are you excluding? If no one knows about it, how can you make them know about it and meet their needs? Remember, we're doing our communities a disservice if we don't make the people who are most vulnerable aware of what it is that we do. And being agile is vital to being able to understand the answers to those questions. It can help us adapt to the changes in our communities. So what is agile? For those that don't know, if your organization typically spends most of its time perfecting a strategy among a close-knit group of leaders, and then only delivers the contents of the strategy once they deem it to be perfect, and then that's the strategy for the next 5 to 10 years, then your organization is probably not agile. That is what is known as a waterfall environment. Agile is incremental. You try to deliver the minimum viable product and continue to optimize within a flat hierarchy where teams can mobilize quickly and adapt to the product's feedback. It is not a solution to your problems. Within it, you still need the right people, the right culture, and you need to be intentional about the problems you are trying to resolve. Having a stand-up meeting doesn't make you agile, but it's one of the ways you can, one of the parts of it, right? So agile works best when you're making an intentional effort to utilize all of your staff's expertise. Working on a digital strategy, consider user stories. A user story is essentially the smallest piece of work required to add value to a user and can be delivered quickly. User stories sound something like this. As a fundraiser using Grant Connect, I want to save a funder profile to my pipeline so that my team can review and decide if they'd be a suitable candidate. So when we were coming up with how to design Grant Connect, we created something where it was very easy in one click just to save a funder profile, and it would be there in your dashboard, and anytime someone else viewed it, they could see it there. And that leads me, anyway, to my next point about agile. What happens to a digital campaign that isn't agile? And that's where we come up to Hillary Clinton. I was in Ohio for the month leading up to the election day in 2016. It took me one day of working on the campaign to notice the problems we were having. I said something, but did the campaign change or anything? No. And I'm sure you've all had those problems before in your work. These are not new problems. But this was a result of a very rigid hierarchical structure. All the staff on the ground, the ones sifting through the data, the ones calling up volunteers, calling up voters, knocking on doors, they knew what was going on. And that's an incredible amount of insight to have and to not be utilized. But there was no mechanism for feedback, for pivoting and changing course. There were no feedback meetings, no retrospectives. Retrospectives are a big part of an agile environment. After you complete a sprint, you have a retrospective and you look back at some of the work you did and see what you can do for the next time, right? We had weekly calls, but the weekly calls were there just for us, for the teams across the state to shout out their numbers. You know, we knocked on a gajillion doors, and that means therefore we are going to win. Not true, obviously. Quality is still important. Your digital strategy, your marketing plan, whatever it is you're working on, is never going to be perfect. So it's important to try to deliver the minimum you need to add value to your users' experiences, then work from there. See how they respond to what you've produced, adjust it, optimize it, and continue to increase that value as you go forward. And Hillary's campaign relied on trash data, so it spat out trash for us to work on. The staff who saw the results of it had no way of reporting to their superiors that it was indeed trash. And no matter how much money you pour into your digital strategy, no matter how many experts you consult or hire, it will only be as effective as the people executing them. So please, when you go back to your work, enable the people who are executing the strategy, empower them, listen to them, and think about how you can make it even more inclusive and accessible. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll be happy to take any of your questions.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Jaffer. I appreciate your time today for sure. Yes, folks, we do welcome all questions through the Q&A tab or the chat tab as well. I did put a little note in there just suggesting that people use that. Oops, let me turn on my camera here again so you can see everybody. All right. Apparently, yeah, so we're just waiting for questions to come in. Actually, I do see one here, Jaffer, actually. What would you say are some of the first steps to getting started with a new digital marketing strategy?
I think the first steps would be, I mean, depends if I guess if you've never had one, I would look at, especially in the non-profit sector. I mean, there's a lot of pressure to get buy-in from everyone, and I wouldn't really discourage that, but I would say have some idea about what's not working currently with your current strategy, if there is one. I'm sure there is one, but it might not be formalized. But just have a sense of what it is you're doing that isn't right now, and why it is that you do want to have one in the first place. I mean, you should have one, but that isn't enough of a reason. And I think you should kind of look at, you know, let's have a chat once, you know, the person who wants to bring this forward has a good idea of the opportunities, and why we desperately need one. And I think then start having the conversations and start saying, well, who are we maybe not including in our previous, you know, unwritten strategy, and who can we start including, and how can we, you know, whatever you're doing, you want to kind of have some growth. You want to reach out to more people. And I think, you know, as I said before, we do have a responsibility in this sector to reach out to more people, and we're doing a disservice to those we can't reach out to. So I think it's coming at it from that standpoint, and then maybe working from there.
Excellent. Okay. And we have another question here. What is your top tip for SEO?
I would say my top tip for SEO is look at, you might already have some data. I don't know how much data you already have, but start looking at what people, what pages they're visiting most often, and write more content that looks a little bit like that. If you have Google Ad Grants, which a lot of charities and nonprofits do, if you don't sign up for it, it's really easy to get. It might just need a bit of training to use it, but use that and you'll learn a little bit more what keywords people are using to search for you, and start writing content that reflects what people are searching for, and anticipate the needs a little bit more around what people are looking for. Like I said, with Grant Connect, I would say most of the sector doesn't know that Grant Connect exists. So there's no point in me writing something that mentions Grant Connect 1,000 times, but I need to know a little bit about what people are looking for. And so getting to know your users, their needs. I talk to the people who work with Grant Connect every day, and I understand a little bit more about their user, the customers, and they say, well, you know, a lot of them are fundraising researchers. They usually search for foundations. So one of the things I've suggested is we write a bunch of articles with the names of foundations, because the people who are searching for the foundations in Canada are probably fundraisers. So we can make it, you can make a few educated guesses, and then from there start writing some content, see how it goes, then add some more.
Excellent. Okay. There's another question here, and I think maybe you might have touched upon this a bit, but what tools should we use for our analytics to know our audience more? Do you have any tool suggestions?
You know, I still work for a charity. We don't have that much money to get great analytics. So I use Google Analytics. It does the job for what we can do and for what we can, you know, because if you can probably buy some extra fancy analytics tools, but does your does your charity have the capacity to make the most use of them? That's the thing. I think I would caveat that whatever you decide to get, how are you going to implement what you learn from those analytics to good effect if you don't have the resources? So yeah, I use analytics. We use Buffer for social media. That has some good analytics too. Yeah, there's a bunch of good stuff out there, but I work for a charity, so you know.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, you know, that change management piece that you were kind of mentioning is definitely something that you would want to consider. I'm sorry, it says anonymous with the person that asked that question. So, you know, whatever tool you do end up actually implementing, you may want to make sure that you've got a good solution in place to be able to sort of make the most of that for sure. We've got lots more questions coming in. This is great. Any comment of video versus text as a way to communicate?
Like I'd say, okay, for social, like very quickly, for social, video is better. Facebook is prioritizing video. That's 100% fact. I would say, but you've got to put captions on it. Most people don't listen to your videos. There's still a lot to do because now everyone is caught onto the fact that video is so powerful. Everyone is doing video, and it can be quite expensive to do. If you are going to put videos on your website, videos aren't always the most accessible. So bear that in mind. You might want to transcribe some videos, put captions on your website too. Then they're not always on a lot of websites. They're not always formatted very well. But social, it's always a good idea. And there are loads of companies now that that help you kind of quickly put together a bunch of like explainer videos, and we've used it before, where we have some very heavy content that I think not a lot of people are interested in, but we wanted to, as I said, make it a little bit more equitable and inclusive, and we kind of like did a easy to digest version of our corporate community investment report, and made it into a 1-minute video that was just compiled with stock video and so some text and some like nice little like cheesy stock music, and it was nice, and like that's something that we get like lots of views for. It's a much more effective way of reaching people who don't know about anything you do, and I think that's always a bonus.
All right, thank you for that. So there's a question here, and I think it's kind of referring to your experiences during Hillary Clinton's campaign. They're saying here, most hierarchical orgs, sorry, I can't say that word for some reason right now, but most of these are top down, and how would you have introduced data back to the HQ, I guess, to the headquarters during that campaign, and gotten that top tier buy-in in buying into that data back strategy?
I just say that like it just doesn't work. Top down hierarchies, it's very old fashioned. It doesn't work anymore. When you do have success, it's not because you had that strategy. I think like we need to kind of I think we live in a world now where people are, everyone is very engaged with technology. Everyone is a lot smarter than you probably. And I think, one comparison I did, we studied some political campaigns before going to Ohio, and like it was a case of like what Obama did in comparison, and it's not anything political here, but the strategy, the design of the campaign was that the people on the ground were empowered. They were hired locally. I'm not local. I was there, right? And so I was, I'm part of the problem, right? So you had, for example, they had like Obama had programs where it was say Black women in Ohio calling up Black women in Ohio, and things like that. And then because it was a sign of how much they were trusted, how much okay, well, I want their opinion. If I want to get the Black female vote in Ohio, I'm going to talk to these women on the ground who are working with them. But if you design it from the top to begin with, it's doomed for failure. You're gonna, sure, you might have some success, but it was never because of your structure. Whereas I think you're gonna have more chances, more like you're gonna be more adaptable to the world that's changing. And I think, by design, part of the problems that we are facing around the world is because so many things have been designed from a top-down hierarchical structure, and they are very rigid, and people are very frustrated around the world because of that. So I'd just say it's very hard to change it, but I think what we're seeing in the world is speaks for itself and shows that it isn't working. And I'd say that if you want to change, it's very hard to change. I just say try to work with people who don't believe in that way.
Excellent. Okay. And folks, as Jaffer's answering these questions, if you want to ask a follow-up question, or if something's not fully clear, you can certainly ask that follow-up question as well. We do have a little bit more time here for questions, so certainly feel free to sort of, I guess, yeah, ask a follow-up question if you need to. We've got another one here. Currently, nonprofits are looking at really diverse audiences. So donors tend to be older, but those who may share content might be younger. That usually means that the tone or the language and the content is going to be different. Any advice on creating content that meets those different needs? Yeah,
I would say look at the demographics of people who go to your website, who use Facebook. You can get that data within each platform. Because what we found when we were designing our digital strategy is that the older donors don't really use our website that often. They don't go on Facebook that often. So actually we said, well, that gives us a good reason to target younger people, the people who work in the sector. And it's generally, like, I would say it's mostly female, somewhere between 20s and 40s. And I think that's a reasonable audience to target for us, because we're targeting people who work in the sector, right? So so I think it's figuring out who your largest demographic is, and if it does turn out that most, or say it's half and half, say half are over 60 and half are under 30, do a bit of both. So I'd say, but like, I don't think like it needs, it doesn't, I don't think in doing both, you're going to necessarily exclude anyone, but I don't think it might make it a bit more difficult just to be a bit more focused and more narrow in what you're trying to say. But yeah, but chances are you probably have a wider demographic in a more narrow field than you think, probably.
Mm. And I think, like, from a marketing perspective, I mean, A/B testing could probably be quite your friend in that situation, because you might want to test which messaging is going over with which audience, and what are we getting the most response from, and stuff like that, I would assume.
Yeah, I would say that, like, within the agile methodology, if you're just trying to put the minimum out there and just see would this add value, for example, we created a social media group here at Imagine Canada recently, because we didn't have any one person. We don't have a social media manager, and what we decided to do was just test out a few ideas, see what worked, what didn't work, and then we do a review and see, okay, well, these posts didn't work. Is there any reason why? Is there a pattern here? Is there something we can learn from this? You got to try things out by doing them and then seeing what works. And if you are trying to target, say, older audiences, be intentional about that. See how it works. See if it sticks, and then keep going.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. What is the best strategy for organizing website content? This person says, I find as we keep adding content to our website, it just gets more cluttered and harder to find things.
I say delete it. I don't know. This is a problem, I think, probably unique to the nonprofit world. lots of people want to add content, and it's a waste. Think of it this way: it's a waste of your resources. There's a lot of money that there's a lot of like lack of trust as well in charities, and people think we're wasting their money or whatever. I would say organizing content is. I mean, no one wants to sift through your filing cabinet. I think put it that way. People aren't coming to your website because it's a library, unless you are a library. But like, and that's kind of what I've been telling people here as well. You know, there was a lot of content that people wanted, and I said wanted to bring over from the old website, and I looked at the data, and like, well, you know, it was read like 20 times in the last year. Is that really justified? Is that like, think about like not only just how much server space it takes or whatever, but like it's still a lot of sifting through stuff, and it doesn't help your end goal. If I think a website, your business strategy, you're trying to funnel people to take an action, and what you're only doing by having too much content is distracting them with other things that are not your goal. So if your goal is, I want more donations, then funnel them to the donation page. Sure, you want to engage them in other content, things that maybe as part of that might eventually lead them to that path or make them feel part of the charity, but you don't want a point where you have a filing cabinet, and it's just a lot of clutter. And I think if you're going to try and organize it, I would say the best thing is try and amalgamate pieces, because longer content does work quite well on Google. It's more authoritative. See if you can merge content together. But yeah, I don't think there is very rarely a good enough case to have lots of content. If it's not serving your users, I would say do a content audit. Look at what's serving your users and what isn't, and then start deleting stuff.
And actually, I know, like for ProServe IT, for example, when we did our website reboot, we actually looked at what content we were not going to keep bringing over, and what calls to action we were going to add. And what we also ended up doing was super pages as well. So we would take 4 or 5 blogs that we'd written and kind of put it into one super page, with several different topics and things like that. And that's certainly something that we're looking into building out in 2020. But that was a recommendation we got. So I mean, maybe that's a potential suggestion as well, similar to what Jaffer was saying. I'm just seeing one more question here, and we've got about 3 more minutes before we're going to close off the session. So I'm going to ask this one question. What digital marketing channels would you recommend people to focus on to start off with, like to start out?
I hate to give a boring answer, but like it depends where your users are. A website is the first case. Definitely a website is most important. Whenever you have meetings with external people, whoever, they will look you up on your website, and that's the first impression people have most of the time. Even if you haven't told them about what you do, it's the first impression. Make sure that homepage looks good. Make sure that homepage is easy to use. Make sure that homepage is talking about your priorities right now. If it's not, change it. It needs to be about what you are focusing on right now, and it needs to be easy for them to take the action you want them to take. And then I mean, like, it depends where users are, but I would say, like, for me right now, like out of the social media channels, I find Facebook most useful. Because it's probably the most powerful in terms of how much data it harvests from everyone. It's not great, but that's probably why it's effective. But Google is great. If you apply for the Google ads, it's $10,000 a month of in-kind grant money. It's very difficult to use it all, but like you've got to use it. It's worth it. For us, it helps us bring thousands more new users to our website every month, and like once you have it set up, and if you are like you're decent, you have some decent knowledge, or you can get an external consultant to do it for you if you need to. Some of them would like charge you every month to to maintain it and stuff. But ideally, if you have someone in-house with those skills, or you can pay for someone to get those skills, I'd suggest doing that, because they can optimize that on a weekly basis. Might only take an hour of their day, and you'll get a lot of results out of that, and that's for free. So it's worth doing. But yeah, Facebook's good because the amount of data you can get in the advertising is probably the best. If you're planning to advertise, if you're planning to just post something, no one's going to see it really, because it's the algorithms work in a way that they now want you to pay for advertising, so they don't want your posts to get seen by everyone just for free. So yeah, but yeah, your website first.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much, Jaffer. You provided some fantastic content for us today, and I want you to thank you so much for joining us and chatting with us about Digital Marketing 101. And, you know, folks on the line here, I think that is going to do it for this session. But if you do have any further questions about digital marketing for your nonprofit organization, or any questions at all, you can feel free to reach out to cloud@proserveit.com, and we'll be more than happy to help get those questions answered. We'll work with Jaffer and his team to get those questions answered as soon as possible for you. So yeah, I mean, oh, did we have a slide there of your oh, I was just thinking more, maybe a slide with your contact information. But anyway, I mean, you know, Imagine Canada, you know, we can certainly work with them to get those questions answered for you. So really appreciate everybody being on the line today. I know it's near the end of the day, and we've got just one more session or so that we're doing ourselves, but definitely appreciate everybody being on the line today, and Jaffer, you as well, especially. You know, feel free again to reach out to us, cloud@proserveit.com, and we'll get those questions answered. We'll help you get started and that kind of thing. So excuse me, I can't speak today. Take care, everyone, and thanks so much. And we will chat with you all soon.
All right. Thanks for having me. Take care.